am the director of the Hear and Play VIP coaching program, where we show people how to play the piano on daily Zoom sessions. And I'm glad that you all made it to this occasion, the Saturday night piano show. Okay, so today we're going to be having a Q&A, and I'm looking forward. I came here this evening with a box of answers. Okay, so feel free to ask me anything at all. So shout out to everyone live here with us. Can we start out with an introduction? Tell us your name and where you're tuning in from, and let's have more and more people tune in. Okay, so we're going to answer all questions. And let me say this, no silly questions. Okay, no silly questions. So just if you have a question, put it in the chat. I'm going to find all the questions and I'm going to answer them. So, but if you're here live, tell us your name and where you're tuning in from, okay? Let's keep the chats going, okay? The first thing I want to talk about this evening before I'm able to catch the first question is how to practice, okay? How to practice. A lot of musicians know what the term practice means. You know, people know what it means to practice, what it means to sit down and try to get something done on the piano. But there's one truth we haven't told ourselves. When it comes to practicing, number one, you must master visually what you're doing. Okay, for example, if you want to learn your chords and know them in all 12 keys, this is the D flat major 7. You can see the black, white, black, white. This is an E flat major 7, black, white, black, white. This is an A flat major 7 chord, black, white, black, white. You must know your chords visually. Okay, that's number one. And number two, you must be able to define the chords, understand the theoretical concept to the chords. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I'm awaiting the first question, but whilst I'm doing that, I want to address how to practice. Okay, you master you have a visual perception of the chord. Okay, that's number one. And number two, you have to know what the chord is made of. For example, the major 7 chord is made up of the first, the third, the fifth, and the 7 tones of the major scale. All right, you have the B flat major 7, first, third, fifth, and 7. Or you can know major third, minor third, all the intervals that make up the chord. So you must know the chord visually. You must understand the theory behind what you're playing. And number three, you must be able to execute. Don't stop at knowing your major 7 and then you're unable to play. You must know how to play what you're doing. And then lastly, you must be able to recognize the chords, okay? So I want somebody to tell me in the chat, what chord is this? I'm listening. What chord is this? What chord is this? The first person is going to win a prize, okay? What chord is this? What type of chord? Is this major? Is this minor? What type of chord is this? What type of chord is this? Who can tell? I'm looking at the chats right now. Okay, I think I have the first question. Make sure you copy the questions and so that we can address the questions. So the first question for tonight is, how can I be more creative practicing? How can I be more creative practicing? Well, for me, I'll tell you that when it comes to practicing, that's not time for creativity. Okay, it's not time for creativity. That's time for imitation. Practice time is time for imitation, and imitation is going to lead to invention, and invention is going to lead to innovation. These are deeper dimensions of musicianship. So when it's time to practice, you have to imitate something. So I'm seeing answers coming in. Okay, I'm going to reveal the chord. I have an altered chord right here, an A flat, dominant 7, sharp 5, sharp 9. So thank you for that great question. And I'm looking out for the second question. So type your next question on the chat. Okay? So I said the first thing you should do whilst practicing is what? Is imitation. It's not yet time for creativity. It's not yet time to push the boundaries of your creativity, because practice is about trying to get something right. All right? So imitation, this number one. Number two is invention. Now, what does invention mean? You've done your imitation and done your imitation. You get to the point where you now come up with something. You're practicing, you stumble on something. Do we have people here who have encountered that before? You're practicing and then you just stumble on something and it's shocking and you're like, oh my goodness, let me do that again. Let me do that again. That is invention. And after invention, innovation. Okay? That's where I would agree. You want to be creative, innovation. That's the last level. So let's type it in the chat. Imitation, invention, and innovation. That's the third one. Okay? So looking out for the next question. And Miss Lisa Walker said altered chord. Okay, yeah, that's an altered chord. That's an altered chord. Okay, so I'm going to be taking the next okay, I thought I saw the question. It says, y'all like this lesson? Okay, well, I'm glad that you all are following imitation, invention, and innovation. So without further ado, I'm going to break down something whilst I'm waiting for a question to come. Let's get busy. Let's go to the piano. Let's do this, everybody. Let's try this. How great is our God. Let's try this. Sing with me. How great is our God. And now we'll sing how great. Great is our God. He's the name above all names. Worthy of praise. My heart will sing. Great is our God. How great. Let's get this voice in. Everybody. F, B flat, and E flat. That's a one chord in the key of D flat. How great is our God. And sing. That's it too. How great is our God. Okay. Coach Joanna of our VIP coaching program has a question. She says, could you please share technical exercises that we can do for chords? Okay. And she actually deleted the first one. So she said, could you share technical hand exercises for chords? Well, if you're looking for exercises on chords, I'll give you two types of exercises you can do. Number one, technical. Number two, musical. Number one, technical. And number two, musical. So the two things you can do
are technical chord exercises and musical chord exercises. I'll give you two. So take a look at this one. I can decide to practice all my major chords. So here's what I'm doing. Major. And then I'll go up a 4 to F to B flat. Now, this is a technical exercise that will keep me going. You know, if I'm playing my chords, I'll be able to withstand the tension and the pressure. For example, if I'm harmonizing a song that says, so being able to do this, I have to do technical exercises to really move around. So that's for technical exercises. And then you have musical exercises for chords where you play actual progressions. For example, if you go to the piano and you do this, one more time. I changed it, and you take it to another key and you do the same thing. Take it to another key, B flat. Take it to E flat. So when you're doing this, you're doing a musical practice. For example, I'll take a song, What a Friend We Have in Jesus. Musical chord practice. What a friend we have in G. 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 And friend we have in G. Type it in the chat if you're following the technical chord practice and the musical chord practice. Okay, so after that musical chord practice, all our sins and griefs to be. All, what did I play first? Didn't even remember, okay? But right now, I'll tell you one thing. If you can do this, happy birthday to you. Go to another key. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. This is some musical practice versus technical practice where we can decide to do arpeggios or broken chords, arpeggios. And so on and so forth. Okay? And if you're interested in getting more insights on the technical and the musical side, that's why you need to join the VIP coaching program. So text the number on the screen right now, and I'll see you in class. So if you're following, type in the technical chord practice and the musical chord practice. Okay? So I'm looking forward to the next question. So do we have the next question? Is it ready? Okay. So what does it say? So Joe Joy says, how do you choose? Can you take it up on the screen and so I'll be able to read? How do you choose your left hand chords? Whoa! If you're interested in left hand chords, can you type yes in the chat? Okay. How do you choose your left hand chords? I'll show you how to do that. Okay. But first, let me get 10 people. Type it in the chat. Yes. Okay, so getting into the subject of left-hand chords, here's what we need to do. The first thing is that you must understand your triads. That's rule number one. Understand your triads. The triads are the foundation for your left hand chords. So if I'm in the key of C major, which I'm in right now, when peace like a river, triad, that's the one chord. Now, the next thing I have to do is what is called voice leading. Type it in the chat as well. Voice leading. So what is voice leading? Voice leading is it's a broad musical concept that has to do with part writing, how to do the soprano and the alto. But I'll tell you this: when we say voice leading, we're basically a greater number of the times we're talking about moving the tones of a chord around, and there are principles to consider. Number one, if I'm going from the C chord to the G chord, who can tell me what the C major chord has in common with the G major chord? So the C major chord is C, E, G, and the G major chord is G, B, D. What do they have in common? What is the C major chord? What is that tone they have in common? So what the C major chord has in common with the G major chord is the G. So for my left hand chord, when I hit the 1 chord, I'm going to the 5 chord, the G, which is the common tone between the C chord and the G chord, is retained. Is what? Is retained. So when you play this, you retain the G and you move the B and the D down. So the rule is very simple. The tones that are common are retained, and the different tones are moved to the nearest possible option. So you do this, move the C down to the B and the E down to the D. So that's how to go from the 1 to the 5. If you want to go to the 4 chord, same thing. If you want to go to the 3 chord, same thing. That's for triads. Next, I'll talk about 7th chords. When it comes to 7 chords, we can use skeletons. Okay, so look at this. You must know the 3rd and 7th of every tone of the scale. For example, what is the 3rd and 7th of the 2 chord? I mean, the key of C major. What is the 3rd and 7th of the 2 chord? What's 3rd and 7th? The 3rd and 7th is F and C respectively. So if you want to play a D chord, you have 2 access points. You have the F as the first access point and the C as the second access point. So check this out. If I want to play a D chord, happy birthday, you're going to watch me do a chord on my left hand from the first access point, which is F. And I can also do a chord from the second access point, which is C. See that? C, F. What are the 2 access points for the 1 chord? What is the 3rd and what is the 7th of the 1 chord? The 1 chord is C major 7. What are the 2 access points? It's E and B respectively. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to do a chord on the E or on the B. That's how to do left-hand chords. So I'll give you an example. Before we do this, I want you all to tell me what are the 2 access points. What are the 2 access points when it comes to the C chord? What are 2 access points? E and B, right? I'm going to use the E access points and just explain this. C major 9 from the E access point. C minor 9 from the E access point. See what I'm doing? C dominant 9 from the E access point. And C altered chord from the E access point. So how many of us can see that once is a C chord I'm going to use what? I'm going to use an E or some type of E chord. Okay, so take a look at this. Major, minor, dominant, augmented major 9. Okay, this is supposed to be a G sharp, but we're not going to all of that right now. Now, here's where it's interesting. So let me ask you, what is the third tone of C and the seventh tone of F? Now, we're working with the third and with the seventh. With the third and with the seventh. What is the third tone of C and what is the seventh tone of F? Who can tell me what the third tone of C is and what the seventh tone of F is? Third tone of C and seventh tone of F. Third tone of C and seventh tone of F. Third tone of C and the seventh tone of F. I'm looking at the chat right now. Let me see how many people who are engaging. Let's get the third tone of C and the seventh tone of F. How many of us can see that it's the same thing? So if I'm doing a very simple progression from C to F, look at this. From an E access point, I can play a C and F. Can you see that? So everybody give me the E, G, B, D on the right hand, and then the E, G, A, C on the right hand for the full chord. 1, 2, ready, go. It's another thing we can do. Now this is C minor. I'm coming in from the E flat access point, and when I go to F, same E flat access point. So this makes it easy to form your chord. So if I'm doing a song, how great is our God. That's what I'm doing on the left hand. That's the passing chord I'm doing right there. E altered. If you haven't subscribed or joined this channel, do so right now and give this video a thumbs up. I'm going over to the next question. So what is the next question? It says, good evening, sir, and thank you so much for this opportunity. Please, how did you become this good? Do you have a mentor, self-mentored, or okay? Well, I'll tell you one thing. Where I am today is a product of training. Okay? So if you want to become a good musician, you need leadership, you need coaching, you need mentorship, and you need training. Every one of us has a story. You would agree with me that it would definitely get to the point where there's nobody looking your way. You're trying to grow, but it's difficult, it's challenging. But what do? You keep pushing. But there's always going to get to that point where you find the man, where you find someone who's designed, someone whose voice you recognize. Now, let me tell you one thing. I'm not out here trying to get everyone to be on my side. But I'll tell you one thing. If this voice resonates with you, okay, you can stick around, because that's what happened to me in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, when I found Hear and Play. And if you've been blessed by the Hear and Play Music group, I want you to type it in the chat. If you've ever been blessed by any of our instructors, Mike Burrell, Jason White, our director of the Gospel Music Training Center, Jonathan Powell, and talk about Kevin Nicholson. There's so many musicians who have come aboard. And then our very own founder who had this vision. You've been blessed by him. That's what I'm talking about. You always, get to that point where you know that, okay, I'm done. I can't keep pushing these. I need leadership. I need someone to help. I need someone to step in and show me what to do in every step of the way. And do we have those who have been blessed by the VIP coaching program? By yours truly. You've ever been blessed by my Q&A sessions, blog posts, VIP coaching program, Zoominers? It's a great time to let us know that you've been blessed as well. So mentorship is very, very important. Okay, you can start by helping yourself, and then after that you get into the next phase, which is what? Which is being helped by someone, and then a few people make it into the next phase, which is helping other people, because you are helped so that you can become a helper. You are blessed that you may become a blessing. Okay, so I started out by helping myself, and then I graduated into what? Receiving help. And of course, studying music in college, really refined what I have today, and I give God the glory for that as well. But you want to go from that to the next one, which is what? The life that is invested in helping people. Every day I'm on Zoom helping musicians. Every single day. Okay? And the motivation is because I've been blessed so I can bless other people. I've been helped so I can help other people. So thank you for that question. Okay? So I'm going to move on to the next one. What do we have next? Joe Joy says, so when you're playing E flat, D flat in the bass, what does that represent? I'll tell you that. Okay? E flat, D flat is an interval. And if you haven't learned this, I'll tell you this. An interval is a product of the relationship between two notes. So if you want to understand intervals, the first thing you need is note knowledge. Do you know your E flat? Do you know your F major? Do you know your A natural? Do you know your C natural? Do you know your E natural? If you know all these things, then you are ready to excel with intervals, because the next thing you need is scale knowledge. And what is scale knowledge? Scale knowledge is basically the knowledge of your major scale. A lot of people watching this know that this is the C major scale. Note knowledge plus scale knowledge leads to the knowledge of intervals. And what do I mean? The relationship between C and the second tone of the C major scale is what we call the second. It's called the second. The relationship between C and the third tone of a scale is a third. Who can tell me what the third tone of a C major scale is? I'm looking at the chat right now. What is the third tone of the C major scale? Well, the third tone of the C major scale is E. Therefore, the relationship between C and E is what you call the third. The relationship between the first and the sixth tone of the major scale is a 6. So let me ask you, what interval is this? Now, considering that B is the 7th tone of the C major scale, you call this interval the 7th. And it goes beyond this. I'll tell you this. If D is a second, D flat, it's going to be what? Some type of second. So this is a second, this is a second. This is a third, this is a third. The relationship between C and E goes beyond the C and the E to the C and every type of E. C and E The relationship is called the third because E is the third tone of the C major scale. However, C will look beyond the E natural and also have this third relationship with E flat, with E sharp, with E double flat, with every type of E. The relationship with C and D is a second. But beyond just the D natural, the relationship between C and D flat, C and D sharp, every type of D has a second relationship with C. Now, back to what you asked. Between the E flat and the D flat, we're going to rely on the E flat major scale. Can somebody help me type the E flat major scale in the chat? Can somebody help me type the E flat major scale in the chat? Remember, I told you that you can't do this without scale knowledge. So here's the E flat major scale. E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, C, D. So here's what we have. We have E flat and D flat. Now, D is what tone of the E major scale? D is the seventh tone of the E flat major scale. So this is a seventh, and this is also a seven. Let's count. E flat is the 1, and the B flat, F is the 2, G is the 3, A flat is the 4, B flat is the 5, C is the 6, and D is the 7th. So this is called the 7th. And you call the D natural the major 7th, and you call the D flat the minor 7th. So every chord, every E flat chord with a D flat contains a minor 7th interval and has a high tendency to turn out a minor 7 chord. Has a high tendency. That's not the case all the time, because this E, and D flat, this is a minor 7 chord because of the D flat. Okay, so this is called the minor 7 chord. So when you do this, R, A, Z in great, how sweet. Okay, so that saved the wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. Okay, Jesus keep me. So in addition to the E flat and the D flat on the left hand, you can do the G, C, F. Okay, so I hope that helps. All right, we're going to take the next question. And thank you all. No silly questions. This is from Opeyemi Muyiwa. Says, what chord is it to use when the melody of a song is repeated on the third tone? And what progression is not to stay on the one chord? Let me start with the first one and try to understand what you mean by the second one. Let's take that question again. It says, what chord is it to use when the melody of a song is repeatedly on the third tone? What this means is, for example, if I'm in the key of F major, okay? If you have a melody repeated on the third tone of a scale, ta da 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 da, I'm in F major right now, okay? So ta da 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 da. Well, you have to start learning that the third tone of the scale, this is the first thing to do. The third tone of a scale is a part of the one chord. So the first option of what to do is the one chord. But there are also other chords to play, like the 6th chord, like the 4th chord, and the 2 chord. You see that? One more time. Step number 1 is knowing where the third tone belongs. Okay? And let me put it this way. In the key of C major, key of C major, I'm going to go back to C. I want everybody to understand. If you're voting the C major chord, type C in the chat. Let's go back to the to the motherland. I want a key that everybody is following, okay? I don't want to lose nobody tonight. So type it in the chat. If you're voting for me to share this in C major, type it in the chat. C major, C major. Or if you want me to stay back in F major, type it in the chat. I'm going to count 6, and then I'll pick the key that you guys have voted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's do this in C major. What are the primary chords in C? The primary chords in C major are C major, which is the 1 chord, F major, which is the 4 chord, and G major, which is the 5 chord. So these are the triads that govern the key of C major. And what this means is that they are in charge. Okay? So C, E, G, F, A, C, and G, B, D. I want to add one more group, which is G, B, D, F, which is group number 4. So 3 groups for primary triads, and the 4th group, which is the G, B, D, F. So I'm going to ask you this. Is this a part of the C, E, G, or the F, A, C, or the G, B, D, or the G, B, D, F? So this is a part of the C, E, G. I'm going to harmonize this with C, E, G. This is also a part of F, A, C. I would harmonize this tone with the F, A, C. So 2 things I can do for the C melody notes is this, because C is a part of the C, E, G, and C is a part of the F, A, C. So C, what about D? I'm going to ask you, where do you find D? Is D a part of the C, E, G, or F, A, C, G, B, D, or G, B, D, F? Let me know in the chat. I'm looking at the chats right now. Is D a part of the C, E, G group, or the F, A, C, or the G, B, D, or the G, B, D, F? After the count of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. D is a part of the GBD and GBDF group. So for the second tone, we're going to use GBD or the GBDF. I'm still trying to keep the D on top, okay? So 2 options. So if I go, He's the Lord, it's GBD or GBDF. He is Lord, FAC or EGC. You see that? So the part that says he has. So back to the conversation. What I just did is called reharmonization. But you can't do reham when you haven't done harm. You have to what? Do your harmonization before reharmonization. So for the third tone, the E a part of the CEG or the FAC or the GBD or the GBDF. So you do the same thing for every tone of the scale. So to this question that says, what do I do on the third tone? I'm going to show you the next thing to do. You have to learn chords that end on that start on every tone of the scale. So a C chord ending on the E, and now an F chord ending on the E, a B chord ending on the E, an E chord ending on the E, an A chord ending on the E, a D chord ending on the E. So if you put this together, okay, and so on and so forth. You can decide to go in half steps if you don't want to go in forward. So take a look at this. These are all chords ending on the what? On the E. Ending on the G. Chords ending on the G. So if I'm going, that saved a wretch like that's how you expand your harmony. It's a very, very diligent study that takes time. Before you know, you get to the point where you can pick any melody note and then you just add chords. These are real chords. So knowing your chords that end in every melody note, it's a very priceless thing to do. Whatever it's going to cost for you to get this done, please make sure you do it. So what's the next question? And thank you all for engaging. I see a whole lot of people in the chat. Please, let's reintroduce ourselves. Tell us your name and where you're tuning in from. You may have someone living in your neighborhood joining us tonight. So the next question. Okay, I'm just going to read this one from Miss Cynthia Shepherd. It says, with 7 chords, how do you know which degree chord is in a scale? For example, C major 7 is on. With 7 chords, how do you know which degree of the scale? Okay, if this is properly understood by me, I would say it depends on the key you're in. For example, C is the 1 in C. C is the 2 in B flat. C is the 3 in A flat. And C is the 4 in G. C is the 5 in F. C is the 6 in E flat. C is the 7 in D flat. So the role of C is defined by the key we're in. Sometimes C would take on the 1 row, 2 row, 3 row, but it's the same C, all right? So if you find yourself in B flat, you discover that the C is what? Is the 2. So when it comes to the major 7 chord, for example, This major 7 chord is found in 2 tones of the scale, and that defines the diatonic function of the chord. The major 7 chord is designed to serve you and me as our 1 chord and as our 4 chord. As you go from key to key, from C to F to B flat, from E flat to A flat to D flat, as you continue to go from key to key, you discover that all the 1 chords, all the 4 chords are saying the same thing. We are major 7s, and we're not minor 7s. We are not diminished chords, because we are major 7s. Okay? All the 1 chords, all the 4 chords are major 7 chords. And when you're talking about minor 7 chords, listen, it's just designed for your 2 and your 3 and your 6. So when you learn the major 7 chord, you've learned 2 chords. The 1 chord and the 4 chord will always be major 7s. And the minor 7 chord takes care of your 2, your 3, and your 6. So you know this using these numbers. When we say 3, minor. When we say 1 and 4, major 7s. 2, 3, 6, minor. So let me ask you this. F is what tone in E flat? F is what tone in E flat? F is a second tone in E flat. And what do you think, second tone? Minor 7. So if I'm in E flat, the type of chord I'm going to play for the F is going to be minor 7. And F is what chord in C major? F is what number in C major? 4. It's going to be major 7. Then the 5th tone is dominant 7. 1, 4, major 7. 2, 3, 6, minor 7. 5th tone, dominant. You all know I repeat things a lot, so I'm going to repeat this 3 times. 1, 4, major 7s. 2, 3, 6, minor 7s. 5, dominant. Even if you forget all, 1, 4, major 7. 2, 3, 6, minor 7. 1, 4, major 7. 2, 3, 6, minor 7. Come on. 1, 4, major 7. 2, 3, 6, minor 7. If rumor has it that C is now 4, C is major 7s. If C chooses to be the 2 or 3, C is minor 7s. Yes, that's how it works. And if C is 5, C is dominant. Let's take the next question as we begin to wrap up and close. Says, good evening to everyone. I want to know if you play your left hand with 1 or 2 notes. Is that okay, or do you have to play all 4 fingers for a bass? Beautiful. Now, 2 good notes, that's all you need. It depends, okay? Piano playing is multidimensional, okay? So sometimes a note will suffice. I will enter, C works. I will enter, C and G works. I will enter, this C and E, these 2 notes will work. I will enter. Some of the times we can go C and B flat. I will enter. So it depends on how you want the music to sound. So let me give you left hand options. I'll give you 3 levels, 5 levels, 5. Let's just do 3 because of time. Number 1 level, notes. That's how you can do this. Number 1, note. Number 2 level is intervals. Use your 7s and your 10s. Let me repeat that one more time. 7s and 10s. So a 10th is the 3rd tone. That's in the 3rd interval. That's in a long distance relationship. Type it in the chat. A 10th is a 3rd that is in a long distance relationship. And what do I mean by that? Let me show you what I mean. If you look at the C major 3rd interval, if you move the C to the next octave below, you have the major 10. So you can do this. Now, this is quite a stretch, but it's helpful. So look at this. Sorry. See that? So this is very cool. So that's second level intervals. And a third level for tonight is where you can actually play chords. Okay, so, and watch this. That's a rootless chord. Now, I'm trying to play the bass so that we can hear the context of the chords, okay? And now. That's the next one where you're doing chords on the left hand. So you can start out by doing notes, and then you get to intervals, 2 notes, okay? So, these are intervals. So what you have here are intervals on the left hand. You can do intervals, you can do chords, and you can do notes. So notes, intervals, chords. I wanted to type 3 left hand ideas for tonight. Note, intervals, chords. Note, intervals, chords. Left hand bass notes, left hand intervals, and left hand chords. Okay, there are actually 5 levels, but let's just stick with 3 for tonight. Let's take 1 or 2 more questions, and we'll bring this Q&A session to an end. But I want to thank you all for being here and for participating. If you haven't liked and subscribed and turned on the notification bell, because I'm bringing us great content next week and of course every week. So I want us to grow this community, and I'm your last piano teacher. So make sure to join me every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So turn on the notification bell, and once we're live, come on in and let's learn together. All right? The family that learns together stays together. Okay, so one last question and then we close. I have heard senior musicians talk of borrowed chords. What does that mean? A borrowed chord is simply a chord that is, derived from a parallel minor key. Let me say that one more time. A borrowed chord is a chord that is derived from a parallel minor key. Now, people talk about 12 major keys. Oh, or the 12 keys, and all 12 keys, and all 12 keys. There are 24 keys. Same way you have 12 numbers on the face of your watch or your clock, but there are 24 hours in one day. C doesn't mean just C major. The C major, the C minor. This D flat major, the C sharp minor. This D major, that's D minor. This E flat major, that's E flat minor. This E major, that's E minor. And if you continue, that is 24 keys. Now we have 12 major keys and we have 12 minor keys. And there's a relationship between the major and the minor. Relative and parallel relationship. What is relative relationship? We have the same DNA. C major and A minor same notes at the natural level. I know, yeah, we have the melodic and the harmonic conversation for another day. But C major and A minor, they share the same notes. Here's the C major scale, and here's the A minor scale. You're going to find the same notes. C major, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. C major is C, D, E, F, G, A, B with the C. And A minor is A, B, C, D, E, F, G with the A. Same notes. But there's something that's missing in this relationship. What is the first tone or the tonic of C? The first tone or the tonic of C is C. The first tone or the tonic of A is A. So even with all the things that they share in common, they don't have the same tonic. So what minor key has the same tonic as C major? C minor. Now check C major and C minor out. C major, C minor. So you see, they share the same tonic, but there are, there are clear differences in their scale. So this is the one chord in C major, C minor. This is the one chord in C major. This is the two chord in C minor. This is the two chord in C major. This is a three chord in C major, three chord in C minor, four chord in C major, in F. Oh my goodness. Oh my. Four chord in C minor, four chord in C minor, four chord in C major, five chord, and actually we can have this in the harmonic and melodic minor scale, but let's just go. There's a five chord in the natural minor scale. So the five chord and the five chord in C major is this. This is a six chord in C minor, six chord in C major, seven chord in C major, seven chord in C minor. Now take a look at this. The two chord in C minor is D diminished, D, F, A flat, because this is the C minor scale. You can see D, you can see F, and you can see A flat, which is quite different from what we have in the major scale. So look at this. That's a progression with the 1 and 2 chord in C major. Now, instead of going D, F, A, I'm going to use a chord that's borrowed from C minor. This is the I breathe. This is the I breathe. That's a borrowed chord right there from C minor. Okay, so there are so many chords you can borrow when you hear things like this. These are borrowed chords from the minor key. This brings us to the end of this Q&A session. If you enjoyed this, make sure you share this, and then that would motivate me, okay? I'll come another time, Saturday evening, when we're all relaxed for another Saturday night piano show. All the best, and catch you on the next one. Bye for now.